Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Podolsky Method podcast. I'm your creator and host, Coach Ilya, Level 5 USA Hockey, a master coach, lead hockey instructor for the New York Junior Rangers, and I run and operate skate shopping shop and called Sharp Skate New York. And of course, I'm a certified public accountant by trade. Um, just wanted to mention a couple of sponsors before we jump into our show. Print only with us, a full printing shop here in New York City for t-shirts or anything you need, signs, they can do it all. Wargate hockey, protection for your teeth for those guys that love their visors and play hockey. You can get 10% off with Wargate at with 10 PODOLSKIY. That's the code. How is hockey? Our dear friends with 10% off with them with the code PODOLSKIY10 for your tape or any other needs that you may have. And of course, last but not least, check out the New York Rangers youth hockey community as you are thinking to put your kids into youth sports. Definitely give us a try. Under $300, you get 10 lessons and full gear, so it's a great way to enter the game. And tonight I have a wonderful guest with me, Daniel Carcillo. For those of you guys that don't know who Daniel is, probably everybody does, but if you don't, an NHL player, over a decade in the league, two-time Stanley Cup champion, and also now founder and CEO of Wesana Health. So he's converted from NHL to business, but then maybe you could tell folks a little bit about yourself. What was it like growing up and how you ended up in the NHL?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man, and thanks for all you do with the youth around New York and coaching, and always need those skates sharpened. So a little edge work. So I grew up in King City, Ontario, which is a small town just outside of Toronto, about 40 minutes north, and everything revolved around the hockey rink. So as soon as you could walk, you put skates on in Canada, and I was drawn to the game immediately just for the simple fact that there were different rules and everything else seemed to fade away when you're at the rink. And then you're pulling on a rope with, a bunch of other guys that had one shared mission. And I was really drawn to the physicality of the sport, the fact that you could hit people, with when they were touching a rubber puck, the fact that you could test their will to play, test their um, work ethic. And I just was drawn to it immediately at a young age. And at 15, I had a decision to make in Canada, single A, double A, triple A being the best. And I decided to make a jump to triple A. I grew up with two brothers. My parents just, we were all in hockey, so they couldn't put all three of us in triple A the whole time. And within 3 years, I was drafted to the OHL and then moved away at home at 16, drafted to the NHL while I was in high school, 72nd or 73rd overall. I should probably know that, to the Penguins. And I graduated high school at 19 and I was in the NHL, the AHL for a year and a half, the minor league system, and then the NHL when I got traded to the Phoenix Coyotes. And Wayne Gretzky was my first coach in the NHL, which is pretty cool. Grant Fuhr, Ulf Samuelsson, and it's a nice little boys club. And I, fast forward, I fought 164 times in 10 years in the league, and had 4 cracks at the Stanley Cup with 3 different teams. I went to the Stanley Cup Finals 4 times my last 5 years in the league, and won twice with the Chicago Blackhawks, and retired early due to concussions. And I was being told that I had mild dementia, or this brain disease called CTE that comes on with repetitive head trauma. And doctors were telling me that I had a new normal to live, and I didn't listen to them, and I fought for my health. And I found medicines that are emerging now that are 4 times better than what doctors are prescribing right now. and I have fully immersed myself in this emerging medicine space because it saved my life in 2019, and I've seen it save a lot of veterans' lives and athletes and people suffering from depression and anxiety. And so grateful for the game. Had a really nice run with the Rangers, and I'll never forget it. It was a pretty amazing team, and it was a pretty amazing year. And I imagine, most people watching your show are watching the game right now. But I'm here in Florida now, and so me and my son are kind of conflicted. But the only jersey I have to the right of me is my Ranger jersey framed. It was a really amazing time to be in MSG and playing in front of fans that are so passionate. So yeah, I've had a very, very, very blessed life for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that all the guys I play hockey with, when I told them that you were going to be on my show, they were convinced that you would have won the Stanley Cup uh, that year with the Rangers if the Ravs didn't get that call wrong, and when the game when the game misconduct.
Oh man, I don't know if they got it wrong, but I that was a tough one, going out. Luckily, I got another crack at it, but going out like that was difficult. And then, I was playing really good hockey, and I I just remember coach kind of coming up to me. He's like, "We want to put you in, but we don't know if we do if it's going to hurt the team." And so I completely understood, like, the last thing that I would ever want is to affect, the team or how the refs were going to call a game because I was in it and because I just made contact with a ref, even though he deserved it. So, but yeah, it was, pretty amazing run. Great guys on that team. Like, they immediately, as soon as I got to the team midway through the year, I think it was in January when Dorsett got hurt, who's an awesome guy too. They just brought me in. And it's funny because Alf Samuelson was the coach, one of the assistant coaches. And he was so different than when I remember him in Phoenix, because his job was to try to get me to listen, off the ice and on the ice, which was a tall order back then. But it was cool to kind of be reunited towards the end of my career and be surrounded by just a great organization. The Dolans, they know how to treat their players, and they get the most out of their players, as you're seeing with this run now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So speaking of coaches, I wanted to ask you, who was, in your career, who do you think was your favorite to play for, and why?
So Quinville was my favorite for sure because he was a man's man. He loved his stogies, and he he didn't lie to you. He didn't beat around the bush as a coach. He told you why you were out of the lineup, and he told you how you could get back in it. And he was very straightforward, and he was energetic and brash and rough, but he was also a guy that you knew he wanted the best for you and the team. And there was this trust factor with him that we could go to his office and we could, you could talk to him. He had an open door policy, and he loved joking around, and he loved the game of hockey, super passionate about the game, really smart tactician. And his views about the game never changed. As far as, like, defensemen, I would always laugh. If anybody took a snapshot from the blue line, he would lose his mind. And he said, I don't care if you don't think you're going to get it through, then try to break an ankle. But little stuff, little details, always would always have, knew when to press the button to do a tough practice, when to pull back to give us rest, was really attuned to the little and finer details of the game about how to get the momentum, especially in a playoff series. It's all about momentum. And then if you have the momentum, how do you keep it? And if you lose the momentum, how do you get it back quickly? And so, a real tapped into type of guy when it came to the finer details of the game that not many people know about or talk about. And his resume speaks for himself. And, regardless, I don't think anybody really knows what happened with that situation, but he's taken the bullet for it in Chicago. And as a person, as a man, in all of my interactions, he was amazing to be around. And I hope he gets another crack at getting back in there and teaching men, and gets another crack at winning, because I know how much he loves the game. I know how much he cares about it. I also know how much he cares about people, and I have to believe that regardless of the situation, he's always thinking of the person first.
I love that. I think, those are such important qualities in a coach that even at the youth level, right? We always try to think about, how do we impact these young minds, not at the professional level, but it kind of goes all the way down to, coaching mites and babies. Right,
Yeah,
and I always tell parents that they are smarter than they think they are, or give them credit for it. And a lot of times you talk to them like adults, and they'll completely understand, they'll listen, and like internalize a lot of the lessons that you just talked about.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I have 4 kids, and from 9 to a year old, and they are. I talk to them like adults. I've talked to them like adults since they were, since they started talking around 3, 4 years old. And no baby talk in our household for sure. And yeah, I don't think we give kids enough credit with how in tune they are, because they're so innocent and unfazed by what disconnects adults, so many adults, right? Which is, the stresses of life. And so I love being around kids, especially my own kids, and just acting like a kid. Like I come down to their level. I don't expect them to come up to mine. So yeah, I love being a dad. And it's one of the reasons, along with my symptoms and how bad I was suffering, of why I decided to stop. I didn't want to be on the road all the time, 186 days, and miss out on what's truly important, which is, recreating and fostering and hopefully creating an environment where you can grow a life. It's
Right.
pretty yeah, pretty cool.
Do your kids play sports now?
Yeah, so my oldest, Austin, he's 9. He did learn to play, and then now he's in rec, and he wants to go into travel. But I've got a deep year ahead of me of traveling back and forth to Oregon to get our clinic set up and helping people. And so I kept him out for one more year. And he'll play travel next year. He made the team, but he couldn't commit to it. And then Scarlett's in soccer. She's my third. She's 5. And Layla's in gymnastics, and she's 7. And then Edith just turned 1, and
Right.
she's walking. She's up to like 6 steps. So
That's a sport all in itself.
it's the best, man. It's so cool to watch 9-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 5-year interact with a baby. Like it's
Yeah.
so cool. Like it's just um it's hard to have a bad day, and don't get me wrong, it's tough, it's stressful, kids they don't necessarily want to listen, and but it's you're lying in bed and at night and reading them stories, and they're just they're just so innocent, and um their brains are so formidable, and I think working in the space that I do now, right, which is helping people reshape or give them a new perspective on life, essentially returning their brain back to like a childlike state so that they can make better decisions and habits and behaviors. It's amazing how similar the dichotomies are. And I just yeah, I like to be a big kid around my kids, and hopefully when they grow older they'll want to come back and take care of me.
Absolutely. I have 3 boys myself. They're,
Oh, cool.
13, 11, and 6, and all hockey players as it
Oh, yeah.
turns out, because once the first one went, I put my first one on skates, he was 4, and my wife was holding my 2.5-year-old in her hands, and he was crying for an hour because he wanted to be on the ice too. He said, "You either take both of them or you don't take either of them." So I was like, "Alright, we'll put them both on the ice." So they've been skating ever since.
Love it.
It's kinda like one of those things where they really like it, and, we have like a hockey family situation going on where we all kinda travel together
Good.
and do all these things together. So I feel
It's,
you.
a, it's an amazing sport. It's the best sport if you're willing to work it, and if kids are drawn to it. As a parent, you should feel lucky because it's not easy. It's going to turn them into, really hard workers. There's a lot of attention to detail and angles and creativeness and critical thinking and creative processing and cognitive like there's so much of how it develops a human being into owning skill sets that you can then use in life. That's what I'm using in business now is are these methods or these habits or characteristics that I picked up with hockey, being able to manage people, being able to lead, by example, and just, trying to be the healthiest version of myself in order to, be able to show up every day and be in the present moment. And I think that's the reason I loved hockey so much because once the puck dropped, everything else faded away and you had to be present in order to win. And I, that's very much like life, and it's very much like business, where you're making all your decisions and gathering all your information in that moment. And if you're too far stuck in the past or too far into the future with fear of what if, um, you're going to fail. So it's pretty cool how I've seen, those skill sets transfer over into business.
Yeah, no, very true. I have a professional day job where I'm, yeah, doing internal audit and compliance work, and then I have, my second job with coaching and everything. And you're so right in terms of the transition of those skills and just being. I think that's the hardest part is finding yourself present in the moment. It's so easy to get caught up in what I should have done, what I could have done, right? In those like terms, and I love how you just said that because I don't think we talk about that enough.
Yeah, it's when we talk to a lot of people that are suffering from concussion um, or just life stress. Talk to a lot of well people too, right? Who aren't sick but need help to get unstuck or to learn a lesson or to figure out where they need to put their time or sharpen up the skill set that they already have that they're proud of, or some people that are just lost that may need to transition, athletes that need to transition into something else and rediscover who they are away from their sport or their identity. And it's pretty amazing to see a transformation happen when you give somebody medicine that allows you to go inward and be introspective, and then in an altered state of consciousness be able to be more connected to the things that have happened to you, and then be able to look into the future and be able to gain insight into what you may want to do, what will make you fulfilled, what will make you happy, and then doing it, coming out of these ceremonies. They're, the what if brain, or that lizard brain that says, well, I know I need to get up at 8:30 tomorrow, well, in my case, 6:30 to get the kids ready, and I know I need to get to my computer at a certain time and make this decision to enter into an LOI to get a property to open up a clinic, across the country. And it's like, well, what if this what if that happens? all of these fear-based thoughts that those aren't present after a mushroom ceremony. Those you're operating off of this intuition or this gut feeling, and we've all felt it when you innately know that you need to do something. And so it's a pretty cool space to operate your life from, which is, just zero fear. And although you care about the outcome, you don't necessarily have like an emotional attachment to the outcome, and your identity doesn't get caught up in it. It's just something that you need to do. And yeah, it's a pretty peaceful place to live.
I love that. And for those folks who don't know what CTE is, it is a chronic traumatic encephalopathy, right? Did I say that
You
right?
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was looking up some statistics before our show, and I realized that, in youngsters, in young kids ages 15 to 24, the head trauma is actually second only to car accidents. It's
hmm
pretty prevalent, and a lot of times it goes undiagnosed because we just don't know. Your kid in football, kids smash their helmets together. In hockey, you hit the wall, and we kind of shake it off. You're okay. Count backwards from 10, and you're good to go. A lot of coaches don't know how to even examine concussion or know what the concussion protocol is. So that's an issue in itself. But I was reading that an estimated 300,000 sport-related brain injuries occur every year, and some studies say it's as much as 40% in kids participating in sports. And so, maybe you could talk a little bit more in detail about your experience. I know I've seen a lot through your posts and through the information you've put out and your journey, after NHL and how you ended up, getting cured virtually through this method as opposed to the conventional doctors and medicine. And I love that. But if, maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So after my seventh diagnosed concussion, I had symptoms for 3 to 4 weeks where I couldn't be around any screens or look at my phone or be around bright lights, a lot of light sensitivity. My slurred speech really was prevalent. I was experiencing some pretty bad insomnia, a lot of anxiety. I had some pretty bad headaches, brain fog, brain fatigue, had pressure, some impulse control issues, some depression, and I had some balance issues. So it was becoming pretty apparent that it was going to be hard to do my job if these things didn't go away. And when they did go away, I just wasn't confident enough in myself to try to get back in the lineup. I stayed around the team because I still had a big role in, setting up the playlists and just being around the guys and a good teammate to make sure that, you know, some guys, like, one of the best things about being in a hockey room and being in a tight knit community is like going in there and telling the boys, like, kind of, what you did last night and just talking. And obviously, when you're playing, you're not doing much at all, right? You're just hydrating. And so there was still a big role to be played. And I, when I was able to go back to the rink, I quickly knew that this was going to be the last go around. And I was only 30. And so I'd made a decision, especially after my friend's death, Steve Monador's death, where he had a lot of the same symptoms. And then it came out that he had stage 4 CTE, or stage 3, which is pretty progressive for a 34-year-old. And I just had my son in November. I was like, man, I should probably stop. And so I made that decision. And when I stopped, that's when I really realized how bad it was, how sick I was, because, you pull yourself out of the environment where you're pretty much always have a brain injury, you know, and then you put yourself into real life, and which is much, much slower and different. People act differently, talk differently, move at a much slower pace. And these symptoms just became overwhelming. And luckily I had means. I had all the best money in the world, or I had money to access all the best doctors in the world. And I just remember going there and just listening to a lot of them, right? And some of them were prescribing me pharmaceuticals, and some of them were doing eye tests on me and balance tests, and some of them were cracking my neck, and others were sticking needles in my forehead and across my skull, and others were talking about the glymphatic or lymphatic system or drainage. And it was pretty exhausting for 4 years, just going to everybody trying to figure it out, right? Hyperbaric chamber, mox acupuncture, float deprivation tanks, reflexology, cranial sacral, hormone replacement therapy, stem cells, peptides, everything, you name it. I tried it. And I would find relief, but like I kept hearing the same thing where, well, it seems to me that I've done everything I can. And, there's a new normal that you're going to have to get used to living. And I didn't, I didn't want to accept that as an answer. In 2017, I remember seeing a study under fMRI of two brains under fMRI, one without psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, and then one with psilocybin. And what I saw, I actually just posted it today on my Instagram. I posted a lot. These right and left brain hemispheres communicating under fMRI at a rate that's never been seen before. And I just thought, well, this is what the doctors were telling me, that they were going to identify an area that was shut down due to trauma, and then they were going to wake it back up again by, like, our critical motor skills are held in one area of our brain. Like, so if that part of the brain, my lower right cortex, was creativity or language, etc., or memory, we would work on memory tests or creativity tests to wake it back up. And here I was looking at a brain being woken up by mushrooms. And I was like, well, how do I get some of those? And so it took me till 2019 to actually access it, because it's a Schedule 1 substance and it's illegal. And so I waited till a state was decriminalized in Colorado, and then I went and took it. And I took some diagnostics before I left, and then 6 months after. And I did that because there's such a stigma with these medicines, and I wanted to, if it worked, like I wanted to be able to show people like data, not just, obviously you can see that I'm healed and here, but I really wanted to be able to show people that this could work for them too. And words aren't enough sometimes. And so 6 months in, I retested my brain. I did a QEEG before and after, and then I did blood work. My QEEG came back with no abnormalities, and my blood work came back completely clear. And there's no concussion drug on the market, or there's, if you have depression, they prescribe you Wellbutrin or all of the antidepressants, SSRIs, that they don't ask about the head trauma. So that was in 2019. Fast forward to today, I founded a drug development company. I took it through the FDA, the protocol that I used. I created a drug development team. I raised tens of millions of dollars. I took it public on the CSE. I then sold that program to a NASDAQ listed company. I owned and operated 3 psychiatrist led clinics, inclusive of med management, psychotherapy, and ketamine in Illinois. Sold that and winding that business down. And then now I'm the COO of Healing Realty Trust, which is building out the infrastructure for these medicines. Because when you do these medicines through the FDA, or if you go to Oregon, which is a legal state, you go to a clinic and you sit there for 6 to 8 hours to experience this medicine. You don't take it at home, and there's no real estate infrastructure in the healthcare market that has that right now. So we're building that. And then I have a clinic I'm opening in Oregon where you can use a full spectrum medicine, so a totally natural form of mushroom, and it's regulated. So there's licensed facilities like the one I'm opening. There's licensed facilitators, experienced people that can sit with you during this experience that has healed my brain. And then there's licensed manufacturers that grow the mushrooms to a certain specification. And then there's licensed testing facilities. So, and there's 27 other states that have active legislation for psilocybin. It's the safest substance known to man. It's been around longer than humans, and it's coming online pretty quickly, and not quickly enough, in my opinion. And there's also 3 companies out there going through the FDA that have have something called FDA Breakthrough Therapy designation, which means that it's been identified as being impactful for an intractable indication. Indications meaning depression or anxiety or treatment-resistant depression. So, um, I've been able to do this in 5.5 years, and I just feel like I'm just kind of getting started, and so I'm just really excited for the future. And I was saying to myself today, and I made a post about it. I was thinking about how grateful I am to have my health and to have these opportunities to be with my kids alone, because I was so bad that like my wife didn't trust me to be alone with my own kids, you know? And not to say that I was just I was really sick, and I just wouldn't have been able to handle all this stimulation, you know? So I was sitting here thinking, I woke up, 6:30, got them off to school, and, I do this often. And uh, I was just thinking how grateful I am to have my health, to be able to do that, to be able to have those opportunities, and to be able to be present, to like enjoy their lives and enjoy my life now. I mean, it sounds really messed up to say, but I'm definitely living my best life for sure.
Uh, was I love that, and kudos to you for not taking no for an answer when a lot of folks do, and how scary that must be, to go through that experience. I mean, I can only imagine. But as we get older and you have those midlife crisis moments, and a lot of folks may not necessarily know if they had CTE or had trauma, but if they were athletes, they probably did at some point, right? And they don't know. I think those symptoms kind of escalate as you get older,
Hmm.
right? And then
Yeah.
I love that you're finding a real solution, and it's not like another chemical. You
Yeah,
know,
and we're gonna track this, right? So it's not just enough for me to open up a clinic in Oregon. We're gonna partner with an academic institution. We're in talks with three of the major academic institutions, and we're gonna track this because obviously most of the 5,300 people I have on this wait list are they're concussion survivors, and there's so many of them because there's nothing else out there. Or most of these people on this list have tried everything and they've been following me, and they're now starting to come around to like, all right, yeah, no, this guy's talking about the exact same thing, the exact same way. He looks even better, and it's been 5 years. And then now people are getting the confidence, even though they still don't understand it. And there's a lot of unknown. They're like, yeah, man, I want to try it. And so we'll track it, and we'll make sure that we collect data so that we can then influence and help more people make that decision and be confident enough to come. And I will say I have CTE. Like, there is no doubt in my mind that I do not have CTE. I have it for sure. These are tau entanglements that essentially strangle dendrites and areas of our brain. And if you've ever seen an Alzheimer's or dementia patient or Parkinson's, different types of tau tanglements, but tau tanglements nonetheless, which rob you of motor skills, language, all of these things, depending on where it's happening in your brain. I have that. Am I going to die from it? Right? No, I'm not. Number one, because of my mindset, and number two, because of mushrooms. Mushrooms mainly containing psilocybin, as well as lion's mane and reishi, cordyceps, chaga, agarikon, turkey tail, all of the mushrooms that you can go to Whole Foods and buy that all have neuro anti-inflammatory benefits that increase BDNF, lion's mane specifically, which is like food for new neuronal pathways that you're then creating with these mushrooms containing psilocybin. So, um, yeah, I'm completely natural. I don't put synthetics or statins in my body. I work out. I make sure that I'm very mindful of the thoughts that I think, because the thoughts I think become my reality, which I've felt, and I've been tapped into that type of system. I focus on recovery and sleep. I watch my alcohol and sugar intake, which are neurodegeneratives, and alcohol mainly. And I, spend as much time as I can with my kids and positive people, you know?
I love that, and my aunt is actually in late stages of Alzheimer's now,
Mm,
and she's pretty much immobile at this point, unfortunately. And
mm.
so and it's not, she was not, I think she was a physics teacher throughout her life, but it was, that's also an aspect that uh I think people fear, even if you're not an athlete. But that's something that could prolong the symptoms and possibly even, you know stop that progression to a point that's amazing.
Absolutely. So I've stopped and reversed. I caught it early enough, 34-ish, 35. I There was an individual who texted me the other day. They wanted another connection to a supply, which I connected them with. And I said, "Oh, great! Like you're liking them. These are microdoses, so sub-perceptual. You don't have to hallucinate." And he's like, "No, they're for my mom." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Hold on, I'm going to pull it up because I don't want to misspeak. Hold on one sec." He
Sure.
said, "My mom is benefiting from them. She has advanced dementia and is now beginning to speak again after a year of almost total silence."
Unbelievable.
Like, and I've seen Parkinson's patients benefit from this. I believe, and I've seen it, and this is why I believe it, or I know it. Believing there's doubts, those are learned behaviors. I know because I've seen it and I've experienced it myself that this can reverse and stop the progression of neurodegenerative diseases. I'm not a doctor, but, and don't take this as medical advice, but I've been around so many people that have had brain injuries, over 350 people that we've helped in 6 years, that, or 5.5, it's coming up on 6 years this summer, which is crazy to think about. In July was the first time I got better, 2019. Um, it just works, and some people are like, well, how? And it's like, well, there's no neuroscientist on earth that's ever going to be able to tell you how, right? We got over 12 billion neurons. And, if people want to sit there and think that they know, that's fine. But just look and either believe it or not, you know? What's up, baby? I want paper. Oh, say hi, Layla. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, get paper. Okay. You got it? Why do you need headphones? Oh, hello, Scarlett. You want to say hi? You want to say hi? No? Okay. You got it? Yeah. Let me help you. I want a blue paper. Blue? This one. There you go. You want some or no? What does that say? It says Layla. Wait, is that mine? Yes. Okay. I never saw Miss do that.
We got
Exit.
special guests.
Exit the
Hello.
room. No. She looks like me during my career. Smile. No.
Oh, there
No
you go.
face. How can't you hear him? Oh, he's on my headphones. He says hello. Okay, go. You're like a deer in the headlights. Go. Wait. Let me see your headphones. Okay. Put them on. Put them on. I want to put them on. Say hi.
Hello, girls. Nice to meet you. How are
Hi.
you? How's it going?
Good. Come here.
Hello. How
Hi.
are you?
Good.
You hanging out?
Okay. I want to go in here. No, not in here. Go in the room. Go on the kitchen table. Just wait. You got it? Okay, go. I'm gonna draw something for you, okay? Okay. In the kitchen. It's gonna be an early Father's Day present. Ooh, I like that. I like that. Okay. Okay. Okay, can you close the door? Okay. Thank you.
That was awesome. I got special guests on the show. I usually have to pay extra for that.
A little intermission.
That's right. They're so wonderful.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I think the work that you're doing is unbelievably meaningful. I love talking to, listening to these stories and actually seeing and believing that there is a better way. My wife has gone through some things, with autoimmune, and she's still
Mm-hmm.
dealing with some of those issues
Mm-hmm.
that, she's still pretty much undiagnosed. And so some folks are saying she has some arthritis, some are saying it's autoimmune, some saying something else, but it's never concrete and saying, here's what you have and here's how you treat it.
Hmm.
And yeah,
I've seen a lot of people with Lyme disease, autoimmune disease, undiagnosed. Nobody knows what's going on, but they're going to call it something, and they've gotten better. Like after one treatment, what I like to call, I like to say that it's putting your body, your mind, body, and spirit back together in equilibrium, back to homeostasis. Even if you don't know what is happening, that's the intelligence of the mushroom. That's why I like to take full spectrum mushrooms, because there's different alkaloids and tryptamines in the full spectrum, as opposed to just pulling out psilocybin. There's like over 100 other tryptamines and alkaloids, and they all do something. They all take you on a trip, and they take you on different trips. Some feel more heart opening, some feel more ethereal, some are more visual in hallucinations. So, and if you know that it's more visual, that's hitting your more of the frontal lobe, frontal cortex, and that's good for concussion, because that's where we find a lot of the CTE. So you can get really pretty specific, but I look up. I'll send you some of the John Hopkins studies for your wife to look up, because
awesome.
um, I'll send you an email with the link, and just tell her to go look at the publications. And the first studies that John Hopkins did was on end of life, terminally ill cancer patients, and it was on end of life anxiety.
Mm.
And a lot of these patients came back saying that that was the most meaningful experience of their life, because it helped them realize and get connected to being comfortable enough to know that this isn't the end. And there's a lot of these experiences, right, where people who have depression go into a ceremony, die, a part of them dies, but it feels very much like you're dying, and that's why you have to have somebody in the room to make sure that um that they can ground you, to say, no, no, like, go through this experience, but you're here, and it's very, very safe. Nobody's actually passed away on psilocybin.
Right.
You have to take over 1,500 grams. You can't eat that much. And but then you come back to this body and you have these realizations, right? You have, like, what was I stressed out about?
Right.
A job, you know,
Right.
uh, you know, most of the thing, you just have these realizations that most of these anxieties, or some of the depression, is caused by, maybe things that have happened, but you have these realizations or go through these traumas again so that it doesn't govern the rest of your life. Or you let go of these anxieties because you realize that they haven't happened yet. And it just kind of puts you back into the present moment, where it's it's bliss. That's where gratitude is, and that's where, just like that moment that we just shared, that's like the special stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a little question coming in from friend of mine, Alex. Here, he's asking. He says, "History of shaman use psilocybin as a tool for healing emotional and mental alignment. Have you experienced any shaman rituals or know anyone that has?"
Yeah, so a lot of the music that we use has shamanic ties, and rituals. I haven't experienced, like taking mushrooms on Native American land or anything like that. I have done ayahuasca in the high jungle of Peru, Tarapoto, Peru, and that was, with the Icaros, and that was very traditional. But I have experienced, psilocybin to obviously heal, and and fix my brain. And it was the next day where we did like these Indian sweat lodges, and so from that sense, there was a kind of, I guess, story arc that tied into the Native Americans, because they would do something very similar the day after, sweat, all the toxins out. Um, but a lot of the music is rooted in kind of tribal beats, or um, kind of the same hertz that they would use.
Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, no, and I mean, I've had, um, very limited experience with mushrooms myself, but you know, to understand in terms of when it comes to um, using it on a long term basis. I know you mentioned microdosing, but I
Hmm.
saw you also go through these, I guess, events where it's you could do like major dosing, right? And you could do more but controlled.
Hmm.
So how does that work in tandem?
Yeah. So the some people like to microdose over longer periods of time, where they're introducing this medicine at low doses, so they're not hallucinating, but they're still getting, the neuronal benefits. And other one of them's back. Um, Big doses are good because they help to reset the system, and they help individuals who may be suffering from, depression or anxiety or PTSD, relive this trauma so it doesn't govern the rest of their life, or see the things that are holding them back, or kill off parts of them that no longer serve them, these types of ego deaths. And so in large doses, you're in an altered state of consciousness, and you are very much facing the issues that are holding you back, whether you want to call that depression or anxiety or stress, the death of a loved one, making sense of this life, you know, um, for any real particular reason. You can bring pretty much anything to the ceremony, and you'll likely get the answer. That's the inherent intelligence of this technology, that some people call it. With the microdosing, I just knew, and people know, like, nothing gets fixed in 5 hours. So, from a neuronal standpoint, I've been hitting kids since I was 4, so for 26 years. So I just knew that I needed a little extra, and I wanted to, continually and habitually take this medicine. Now, that being said, I take 60 days off every year. I also take weekends off, because you don't want to build up a tolerance to anything. And currently, right now, I'm not microdosing. I haven't been microdosing for the last like 4 months, and I'm feeling really good with just the bigger doses. I did a large dose 2 weeks ago, where we're doing a follow up to with a documentary to the HBO special I did with Brian Gumbel. And so, and then there's different ways to experience the larger doses too, right? Not to confuse anybody, but you can do it with your eyes open. You can do it with your eyes closed, which is much more inward. You can do it with music. You can do it without music. You can do it in pure darkness. You can do it in groups. You can do it one on one. There's many, many ways. Um, but if people are interested in this, then there's lots of information out there. The number one thing that people have to understand is, this isn't a miracle drug. It's not a panacea. And once you do the medicine and you have the realizations, then it's your responsibility with the group or community of people that you've done this with, or the person that's taking you through it, to guide you and to implement those realizations into that you had in an altered state of consciousness into your life. It's time to take action, because if you don't take the action, then why did you take the medicine, right? So the miracle comes when you start to make the decision to get up, when you don't reach for the bottle even though you might crave it, when you feel like yelling or snapping on somebody that, maybe cut you off in traffic, but you don't. When you break destructive thought patterns and turn your negative self-talk into maybe some positive self-talk. When you create new habits, when you start to exercise, when you start to eat better, when you start to really create this relationship with yourself and change, these are like catalysts that can help you do that, because after a big dose, your brain and your heart are open for new possibilities for the first 3 weeks, and you can really change your habits and your thought patterns and your behaviors. That's the miracle of this medicine in a big dose. The smaller doses after that 3-week period can help maybe remind you, and then they can also obviously help flush out, neuroinflammation. That's been proven. And if you have Alzheimer's, my grandmother also died of Alzheimer's, so I have that runs in my family as well, on top of the head hits. If you have that, it's a good idea to take some of these mushrooms. And if people are interested, go to Johns Hopkins. They've done a lot of studies, and then also go to mushroomreferences.com, where there's all clinical trials that are associated with things like lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, chaga, agarikon. These are different mushrooms that are legal. Um, and go to Whole Foods and start to implement them. You know, um, and you'll see a benefit.
Yeah, I love it. And so these, I guess, events that you go to, you guys hold them that people could sign up for, or how
Uh
does that
huh.
work?
Yeah. So if people are interested in learning more, they can go to my website, danielcarcillo.com, or just hit me on Instagram, and or even toss me an email. I put them up on socials pretty often on my posts, and get on the webinar. We do a free webinar every week at 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Time pending, we may switch that up. I'm gonna kind of re-ask, because now there's 900 people. We just started doing this probably like a little less. I think we're up to 6, so 6 weeks ago, um, 6 or 7 weeks ago. So the response has been great, and people are very interested. And I just freely talk and give people information. Bring on some people that have done some of these retreats. They give their testimonials, and then I answer questions. And then if people want more information, then I send them, the decks, and until our clinics open in the next 30 or 45 days, then we partner with a clinic, and I bring small groups, 4 people with me to Oregon, and everything is paid for: accommodations, food, Airbnb, and create this kind of community. You're entering into a community, and you're entering into a space to be able to grow. And people have had some really transformative experiences. And well, thank you. Oh my gosh, I love you.
Uh,
um yeah, people have had some
Beautiful. That's the highlight right there.
people have had some really, really life-saving experiences already, and it's only going to continue. It'll get easier on me personally when the facility's open, just because scheduling, etc. But I'm willing to take time away from my family, and I'm willing to take the flights over there in order to influence lives and to show people what this can do for them. So it's been going really well, and there's so many signs, or God winks, I call them, that I should continue doing this, because people keep coming into my life asking about it, and then committing to it, which is really important. And and yeah, it's my life's work, so we got to keep charging ahead.
I love that, man. That's such an amazing story, and I really appreciate all the information that you're
Of course.
giving here, because I think, uh, you know, even the guys that I play with now, just adults, recreationally, you know, grown men struggling with some of these things. So I love to bring some more awareness about this topic to the folks, and
I
and
appreciate it.
with kids playing hockey, I'm always worried about what happens next. It's great to know that there is something out there that can help whatever their journey takes them, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, It is. It's a really amazing tool to be able to make you a better person. Like that's pretty much it. Like it doesn't get much more complicated,
Yeah,
than that. It can really improve your life. So,
absolutely. And I know we're coming up on the hour here, but I did want to bring you back a little bit to your hockey days
mhm.
and ask you what it felt like winning those Stanley Cups.
Yeah. I mean, it's the culmination of a very long career that you give up your youngest years for. I mean, you move away from everything that family, friends at young ages to go and pursue this thing. You're a boy dressed up like a man, and you're on top of the world. You're the best hockey team in the world. Nobody can touch you after that test, and it's a test. Stanley Cup playoffs and regular season and playing 82 games over 186 games, traveling, and it's a grind, and it's worth it. It was amazing to be able to commit my life to that and to be able to come out on top. It was pretty magical. Yeah.
I need to tell you
Yeah,
something in your ear.
What's that?
Please,
Hold on. I'm almost done, baby.
please,
What?
please. Austin's
Okay, that's fine.
coming.
I'll be out in 5 minutes.
He's saying I love you.
That's okay. I'll be out in 5 minutes. Okay. You guys got to get ready for bed.
In what?
Um, my 9-year-old's he's got an Apple Watch, and he's got a girlfriend. So
that's some serious business.
9. I don't know if I think we were passing notes at 9, right? I don't think I was
Right?
calling anybody on. Uh, um, but yeah, it was cool. The first Stanley Cup that I won, I was single and didn't have a kid and all that stuff, and then the second one, our son was born, so he sat in it. So it was cool to win twice in different points of my life and share that with my wife and with my son, and then my parents, like seeing my parents, my brothers, my hometown, everybody coming out. That was pretty special.
That's amazing. And to your point, I think that from personal experience, I know that I've experienced things before kids, and then with kids, it's almost amplified, right? Like if you go to like medieval times, for example, and you watch it, and you're like, oh, it's cool, and then you go with kids and you see the way they watch it, and it's like you just tenfolded that experience.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's much different when guys. Okay, I'll be out in a second. Um, hold on a sec, guys. Okay, Austin, it's enough. Layla, that's enough. You want to say hello? Come here.
How's it going? Is that a
This is
future
Austin.
hockey player over there?
Uh-huh.
What's this?
It's a podcast. Can you guys respect my
Wait, I wanna
time?
say
Can you
hi.
can you respect my space and go,
No,
please? I'll be.
She
I
said,
understand. Can
she
you?
said the P word. No, he said
Okay.
She said the P word.
Close the
I
door.
never even called her.
Close the door. Boundaries.
Yeah.
Close the door.
I never even
I
called
understand.
her.
I don't care.
You
Just
called
close the
me.
door. Yeah, I mean kids are something. they'll test you.
Perfect example.
Oh yeah, for sure. They don't listen. They don't have boundaries. But like, usually their bedtime's at 8:30. So
So they passed.
yeah, no doubt. Um, I with kids, I think the innocence of it all, and like the wonder is just, it's great. And I mean, he was so young, he doesn't remember sitting in the cup or anything like that, but um I would always look at guys that had like older kids, and I'm like, fuck man, I don't know how you guys do it. I never really wanted a wife or girlfriend or kids while I was playing, because it was it's hard enough to keep this thing in line,
Right.
rather than try to take care of a family. But no coincidences in this life, it all comes when you're ready.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. So I know we're on top of the hour. I always like to close out the show with a couple of rapid fire questions.
Cool.
If you're ready for it,
Yeah.
so just a couple of questions. First one is, what motivates athletes?
Glory.
Love that. Second one, if there's three traits, character traits that you notice in successful athletes, what are they?
Yeah. So attention to detail, work ethic, and then a sort of blind faith that you're going to get it done.
Awesome. And then if you could name three things that can hold an athlete back.
Overthinking, not being prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, and overconfidence.
Mm. Did you have a pregame routine that you always did to get yourself ready?
No. Well, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, like in the NHL for sure, rolling out, etc. Like, there was always the same. Every guy's routine's always the same. Stretches. I had the agility ladder with just music, and I would do it on my own. A bunch of guys would do like, kick the ball around, that sort of stuff. I was always very internal, where just kind of visualizing as I'm doing the warm ups and stretching, like first shift, second shift, fourth shift, fifth shift. If this happens, that happens, and just like getting in, being ready. Guys are always looking at me like, Jesus, like it looks like you just played a period, but I had to be like ready to, tear somebody's head off and get the crowd into it and get the boys into it. So, yeah, my warm up routine was pretty, pretty involved. But it was also just a nice time to visualize and attract, what you want to happen to come to you. So,
Right.
mhm.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I know you gotta go get your kids ready for
Oh, they're
bed.
yelling right now.
Yeah,
Jesus. Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, guys, if you want to follow Dan at Daniel Carcillo 13 on Instagram, and then his website is danielcarcillo.com for those that want to learn more about everything we talked about today, and potential cures, to CTE, and if you want to get more information from Dan, please do reach out, and you could always message the show, and I'll be happy to pass on your questions or comments. Again, thank you so much for taking the time. This was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful night. Let's go, Rangers.
Let's start. Cool, buddy.